Welcome to Unbelievable Stories. Today's story is full of shocking twists and real drama. Subscribe and like to stay updated. Let's dive in.
I hid in the shadows, frozen. No, it felt way worse. I was completely crushed. My wife of 21 years was on her knees in front of the couch with another man. And who was he? Her boss from Brightway Travels. I didn't see this coming. I came home for lunch, planning to surprise her. Hannah always came back at noon since she only worked mornings. It's almost a cliché, the typical story of a spouse walking in on a cheating partner. Well, that was about to be me, and I knew it. Oh, I should probably introduce myself. I'm Lucas Carter, 44, a financial planner at a local credit union. My wife, Olivia Carter, 43. We are what you'd call an average couple, financially stable, and up until now, I thought we got along pretty well in all aspects, including the bedroom. As for me, I'm 5 feet 9 inches, my once thick brown hair has thinned over the years, but I stay in decent shape. Hannah, she's still beautiful, especially for her age, or at least I thought so. Apparently, her boss, Samuel Reeves, agreed. 6'3", 245 pounds, and full of arrogance. What I was witnessing felt unreal. He had lifted her off the floor and positioned her on the couch. She was ready for him. I snapped another picture. These cell phones, they really do more than just make calls. The irony wasn't lost on me. The photos I took would serve as undeniable proof. Hannah's family had a long history of infidelity, parents, grandparents, the whole lot. When we got married, she made me sign a prenup. If either of us cheated, the other would get everything. She wasn't willing to risk repeating her family's past mistakes. It was always the men who cheated and the women who suffered. Well, she'd certainly flipped the script, and I had the evidence to prove it. For the record, I had never even considered cheating. I thought I was the good guy, but apparently, that counts for nothing when it comes to matters of the heart. God, I was in so much pain, but not so much that I couldn't think clearly. My marriage was likely over. Our 2 kids, Sophia and Benjamin, were away at college, 119 miles from here. They'd be upset, no doubt, but life goes on. I'd have to break the news to them soon. I slipped out of the house unnoticed. I had to think carefully about my next move. The thought crossed my mind to confront them, but Richard could easily overpower me. He was massive. More than that, I was terrified of hearing Hannah say she didn't love me anymore. Suspecting it was one thing, hearing it would destroy me. My marriage might be over, but I still loved her. I still needed her. I just didn't know what to do next. After leaving them to their illicit lunch, I handled some business back at work. I downloaded the photos onto my computer. I did some digging too. Turns out Richard had accounts at our credit union. I thought he did, but I wasn't sure until I checked. While I couldn't touch his accounts legally, I had a hunch that someone who'd betray a man in his own home probably had other skeletons in his closet. Maybe he was cheating on his taxes or scamming his business partners. He'd already wronged his own family, after all. I would find out soon enough. I was determined to take Samuel Reeves down, and I had a feeling I could do it. And then there was Hannah. I knew I would get everything in the divorce, but I was going to make sure of it. I secured our safe deposit box, where we kept one of the original copies of the prenup. Our lawyer, Eric Jennings, had the other. I also took care of some financial matters, transferring funds, canceling cards. I wasn't going to let them profit from this, and I certainly wasn't going to go down quietly. They'd have a storm to deal with soon. After work, I headed to Harbour Inn, my go-to bar. Sitting there, I made a decision. I was going to try to save my marriage. I needed to know if Hannah still loved me or if this was just a one-time thing. Deep down, I knew it probably wasn't, but I had to hear it from her. 24 years together deserved at least that. I waved goodbye to Nick, the bartender, tossed a 19 on the counter, and left, ready to face whatever came next. I parked in the garage. I could smell the stew she was making, even in there. "Hi, honey," she said. "How was your day?" She seemed almost happy to see me. "A little rough, but okay, I guess." "Smells good," I said. She seemed pleased at my words. I guess if she was going to give herself away to another man, she wanted to make sure I was happy in other respects. Well, the game wasn't over yet. The next few hours would tell the tale. But all of that could wait until I had dinner. I did love her beef stew. Dinner was normal. We talked about our day. We made plans to go to Anna and Michael's anniversary party the following weekend. They were having it at Harbour Inn. Always a good idea, I thought. We watched a little TV. Well, she watched TV, and I watched her. She was so calm and collected. Had it been me cheating on her, I would have been a nervous wreck, feeling guilty as hell. But her? Nothing, not even a sidelong glance. Could I have been dreaming? Well, maybe, but the pictures were no dream, and I had them. I even had a set of poor-quality downloaded ones with me. I hoped I wouldn't need them, but one never knew. We headed upstairs to bed. The moment of truth, I thought. I smiled at her. She looked at me funny, her first slip. Well, maybe I'm feeling frisky, I said, and you are looking awfully good tonight. She smiled at me, but it seemed forced, though that might just have been my imagination. Well, I should hope so, she said finally. This haircut cost me plenty. She smiled again. We were soon naked and in bed. I was a little more attentive than usual. I kissed her lightly, then more earnestly. I felt up her body, working myself down. I kissed her more southerly lips and made agreeable love to her. She lay languidly as I had my way with her. Soon, I was banging her vigorously. She lay impassive but smiled up at me periodically. In a word, she was bored. And in another word, I now knew her love for me was dead or dying. My love for her was also dying. Rather than carry on with it, I got up. Where are you going? She said, confused. I'll be back in a moment, I said. Then I'll let you be. Her, she said. Let me be. You just screwed me. No, I made love to you, I said. Well, at least I tried. But I'll be back in a second. Just relax. She looked more than a little nervous. I was about to clear up any and all reason for her to be concerned. Still naked, I hustled downstairs, found my briefcase, retrieved the photos, and headed back up. I placed the manila folder on the nightstand and went into the shower. I was soaked up pretty good when I heard the scream, then nothing. I rinsed off and dried myself. I went back in to face the storm. I'd only been gone minutes, but she looked terrible. Her face was streaked and she had on her old robe. It was a tattered thing but comfortable. She'd always maintained, David, please, you've got to listen to me. You've got to, she said, now she was begging. Oh, really? What do I need to hear, Hannah? I'm all yours. One thing I gotta ask, though, in my house. That really hurt, you know, I said. David, it's not what you think, she continued to plead. Well, I'm sure glad of that, Hannah, because if it was him screwing you, as I originally thought, we are done, you and I said. So, was it? Was it him screwing you? David, no. I mean, yes, but I mean, it's not what you think. I don't love him. I love you, only you. Didn't I just get done proving that to you, she said. The hope in her voice was palpable. She was praying it was enough. You mean when I made love to you just now? I said. Yes, exactly that, she said. It was wonderful, right? Hell no, it wasn't. I was hoping that I was wrong, Hannah, that you would at least love me too, that you would show me at least as much passion as you showed the a-hole today. Maybe then we might have worked something out. I mean, 21 years, Jesus. I know couples sometimes kind of get bored with each other after that much time, but you couldn't get even a little interested in me tonight. It was obvious. Hell, I almost couldn't get it up to screw you, it was such a turn-off, I mean, your bored attitude. But you were pretty, so at least I was able to get one last sex in before the end, I said. David, you're wrong. I loved what you did to me. I know I was relaxed because you relaxed me with your hands, she said, getting desperate. What about with my tool? I said. What about that? Tell me, is he bigger than me? I'd really like to know. David, what kind of question is that? Size doesn't matter that much to a woman. You are plenty big enough for me. You know that, she said. Still didn't answer me, Hannah. I really want to know. I have a right to know, don't I? I mean, if you're going to go out and screw another man, shouldn't I at least be able to know if I have a chance to compete with him? David, that's crazy, she said. Still haven't answered me, Hannah. I'm losing my patience, I said. Okay, yes, he's a little bigger, but that's it, and it means nothing. I love you, not him, she said. Thank you for answering me. And since you're in such a talkative mood, answer me this, why? I said. I leaned back against the dresser, still wrapped in my towel. David, I can't. Yes, you can. This will be your only chance. Toss it, and what little hope there is for us dies with your refusal, I said. She nodded, resigned to do as I asked. You said it yourself, David. You're boring in bed, she said quietly. I was afraid to tell you that. I know the male ego well enough by now. He came onto me in a weak moment. The first time was a year ago. So how often? I said. For other times, she said. Where? I said. All of the other times were in his office. He pulled the blinds closed and did me over his desk. That's it, she said softly. David, I am so sorry. I just needed something you weren't giving me, she said. I wasn't giving you. I said, my voice trailing off in disbelief. She didn't say anything, she just looked at the floor, her hands folded in her lap. In that instant, I was pretty sure I had been the one to blow it. I didn't realize that she had felt that way. I hadn't realized that I had let my woman down. In a way, I had driven her to look elsewhere. It didn't excuse her, she should have talked to me, yelled at me, kicked my butt out, but she didn't. She screwed another man in our house instead. So what to do now? I had been going to kick her out right then, but I saw a sliver of hope for us. She hadn't lied to me, I felt sure of that. Could I forgive her? Could I trust her again? I began to pace the floor. I need time to think, Hannah. You move into Sophia's or Benjamin's room tonight. We'll talk again in the morning. And Hannah? I said. Yes? She could actually feel the hope in her voice. This isn't over. And Mr. Colburn is not home free, no matter what. You understand that, right? I said. Oh, and one more thing, you are done working there. You do get that? I said. She looked disconcerted when I said that. She seemed about to say something but just nodded and rose to go into one of the children's rooms. I figured it might be Sophia's room she would choose because it had its own bathroom. Benjamin always had to use the one downstairs. The morning would bring a whole new set of challenges. I'd be able to think of something by then. I already had a few ideas. She was up before me and the coffee was made. It was a workday, but I was going to call in. We had things to do and a long day of decision-making ahead. She sat across from me, stirring the whitener into her coffee. So, what now, David, she said. She could see I had a pad in front of me with some writing on it. She couldn't read it, of course, nobody could, my scrawl was indecipherable to all but trained surgeons. First thing is, we drink our coffee, have a couple of warm rolls, and then we call our respective workplaces, I said. You're still going to make me quit, she said, looking up from her stirring. Is that a serious question? I said. No, I guess not, she said. Why? You still want to work there with your sex buddy? Tell me now, and we'll go to plan B. I mean right now, I said. No, I just like the work. He and I will never speak again, no matter what, she said. I didn't say anything. I couldn't believe that she had actually asked me if she really had to quit. There were other travel agencies. Why was she so in love with that place? David, are you going to divorce me? Please don't keep me in suspense. I screwed up royally, but I want to stay married to you if you will let me, she said. No, I have decided that we need to try to get by it, but it will be on my terms, and some of the terms will not be pleasant. I will not stand for being a cuck. I love you, but I don't love you that much. No man would, I said. Okay, she said. The hope had now become something else, maybe gratitude. Our conversation was about half over before the phone rang. I got up to get it. It was Lover Boy. It's for you, I said. I got only her side of the conversation. Hello. Oh, no, I know it's late. No, something's come up. I will be in later. No, maybe an hour, maybe two. Okay, bye. She hung up. Why didn't you tell him? I said. I have to go in one last time, David. I have to get my stuff. I even have my laptop there. I intend to tell him then. Is that okay? I was fuming, but her computer was worth about $3,000, so I guess I had to say, okay, but you may be gone for no more than an hour. If you are, the doors will be locked when you return. Am I clear? I said. I had a plan. This could work out for me, her going in one last time. Thank you, she said. I will be back within an hour, I promise. Anyway, I guess I ought to go up and get cleaned up and dressed. I nodded, and she headed upstairs. My little micro-recorder was going to be in her purse. It could record for as many as 55 hours. What she said to him would be on it unless, by some accident, she discovered it. Her purse had numerous pockets and sub-pockets. I found a little sub-pocket that I was sure she would not be looking into, or at least, I hoped, and stashed the recorder in it. She came down the stairs, dressed casually, not her usual formal workwear, and headed out the door. We didn't kiss. Well, she wouldn't be gone long. Her trip took an hour and 17 minutes. I decided to be lenient. I knew they hadn't had time to have sex, but they had had time to talk. That was one conversation I wanted to hear. You're late, but not by much. You okay? I said. Yes, I'm fine. I just feel funny. I mean, quitting like that, it was embarrassing, she said. Well, I felt kind of funny watching him screw you yesterday, so maybe we are a little more even now, I said. She looked sad. I had a bad feeling, but I wasn't sure why. I was able to get my recorder out of her purse when she adjourned to the bathroom a little bit after she got home. But I wasn't going to be able to listen to it until later when I knew she would probably go shopping at the supermarket. She left to do her shopping at 2 p.m. Her car was moving slowly down our street as I pulled the little device from my jeans pocket, rewound the recording, and punched play. There were sounds of the street and traffic. I heard her say to no one as she drove, she clearly was upset with herself and probably with me. The next few minutes were essentially silent until I heard her open her car door and get out. Hello, Margaret. Is Mr. Colburn in? Sure, go on in, Hannah. You know the way. Sounds of doors opening and closing followed. What's going on, Hannah? Why did you sound so funny on the phone? Richard said. David knows, said Hannah. He saw us yesterday and he has pictures. He's making me quit working here as of now. I'm here to get my stuff and then I have to get right back, right back. I'm on the clock. Oh my God, he said. What's he going to do? Are you and I finished, Hannah? I love you. I know you love me. What can we do? Does this answer your question? I heard her say. Huh? What are you doing, he said. Getting naked. But you have to do me fast and then help me pack so I can get back in time, she said. I listened a little longer to the banter and the sounds of him screwing her. I knew what I had to do. I pulled a couple of suitcases out of the closet and started throwing her stuff into them. I called a locksmith who was able to do a rush job. He was a guy the credit union used. He needed my support. I had her packed, though badly, and the locks changed in the 3 hours she was gone. It occurred to me that she could have met him while shopping, but I doubted that. The locksmith was just driving away when her car pulled in. She started to get out, but I held up my hands to stop her. I picked up the suitcases on the porch beside me and brought them to her. Her eyes got big. What? Shut up and get out, I said. You better go back to work. You're going to be needing your job. David, I thought. Not after what you did with him in his office today, I said. We are finished. You're his lover, not mine. And you and I are done. Say hello to Mr. Big for me, okay? I was all but snarling at her. Oh my God, how? You couldn't. She was flustered, confused, frightened. I was there, I lied. Well, actually, I sort of was there. She looked at me as though what I said made no sense, and of course, it didn't make any real sense, but I loved the fact that she was totally out of the loop. David, if you really are kicking me out, I do need to get my stuff, she tried. Make a list, and while you're at it, it might be useful for you to remember the prenup you made me sign, I said. Call me tomorrow or the next day, and I will let you get whatever else you're entitled to. I turned and walked in. She was still standing by her car, shocked and flustered. I watched from an upstairs window as she put her bags in the car. Just before getting back in, she flipped me the bird. She had to know I was watching her. I flipped it back at her, but she didn't see me do it. The kids were seated around the dinette table, having been summoned home by me. Yes, Dad, she did call us, said Sophia. She said you kicked her out but that you had reason. Sophia was our firstborn. She was 19. Benjamin, her brother, was 19. I smirked. Reason? I said. I had reason. I called you guys here to let you know that your mother and I have irreconcilable differences. For obvious reasons, I'd rather not get into them with you, but I will say this, your mom has a boyfriend. She likes him better than me, and as far as you two are concerned, that's pretty much the long and the short of it. Dad, Mom would never do that to you, said Benjamin. She loves you. She told us so today, both of us. Right, Sophia? Yeah, Dad, she did. She didn't say anything about her boyfriend then, I said. No, Dad, she said you were really mad about something, but she wouldn't tell us what. She said you'd have to do that, said Sophia. Typical, I muttered. Leave the dirty work up to me. Kids, I just did tell you. She's got a boyfriend. She's, well, doing him. Now we have to leave it at that, okay? I hadn't intended to put it out there for them. I only wanted them to have a heads up about the impending divorce, but now I'd had to lay some of the facts out on the table. Dad, she said she told you she loved you, but you just wouldn't accept that. She didn't say anything about another man. She said she hoped you'd do the right thing and not make things worse than they already were, said Benjamin. Dad, I know Mom loves you. I know she would never have, well, you know, with another man. We believe her, Dad. You got to take her back. Solve the problem you've got with each other and take her back. I know you can work it out, Dad, said Sophia. Did she give you a number to reach her? I said. Yes, said Benjamin. She's staying with a friend from work for the next few days. Call it, I said. Benjamin started to object. I raised my hand to stop him. Just call her and ask about Richard. This was getting way too deep for me. I didn't want to use the pictures, but I was not going to be the bad guy in this, no matter what. Take the phone in the other room and talk to her in private. I will wait until you're done, I said. Benjamin took the phone into the other room and made the call. He was gone for some time. He came back and had a smile on his face. Mom said to tell you hello, Dad. She'd been crying. I talked to Mrs. Colburn too, and she said she hoped you'd come to your senses. It was surreal. She was gambling that I'd be willing to overlook her double betrayal because of the kids and our 21 years, but the kids hadn't seen and heard what I'd seen and heard. More than that, she was staying with him and his wife. The woman had balls of steel. I'd never played poker with her, but now I was glad I never had, she'd have cleaned me out. Get her back on the line, I said. I want to talk to her. He dialed and handed me the phone. Mrs. Colburn, may I speak with my wife, please? Yes, it's me. Try in 30 minutes. No, the kids won't be there, not for this one. No, 30 minutes and not 1 minute more. I hung up. You two stay here. Your mother and I are going to discuss a couple of things, I said. She was already at a table in the back. He was with her, big mistake. What's he doing here? He's got 4 seconds to get out, or I destroy both of you, I said, literally sneering. David, he's here to apologize, she started. Screw him. Get out of my face before I take you down, I said. I knew he'd probably kill me, but the truth would be known then, wouldn't it? I reasoned. He ignored my ridiculous threat. "Mr. Pierce, please give me a chance, just 2 minutes, and then I will get my face out of here if you say so," said Richard. I glared but raised my hand in a signal for him to continue. I still stood. "Mr. Pierce, your wife and I, well, we haven't been." "Richard, let me, then you can have your say," said Hannah. "We haven't been honest with you, David, but I haven't cheated on you." I looked at her like she was crazy. I had pictures and she'd seen one of them. Yes, I know what you're thinking, but I wasn't cheating on you, not really." "Not really?" I said. Now I was confused. "David, Richard's been screwing me for 15 years, not just the 5 times I admitted to," she said. I hoped beyond hope that the recorder in my coat pocket was getting all of this because nobody would believe me if I told them. "What I mean is that I have been your wife, your faithful wife, for all that time. The only thing I've done was have extracurricular sex with Richard to kind of fill in, well, the gaps in my sex life. I never told him I loved him. I never denied you in bed. He never got more than you. Every time I did it with him, I did it with you the next day, sometimes the same day or night. Second selection for me, you rotten." I was getting mad. No. God, no. I never gave you second selection, never. I was always douched and showered if we did it the same day as Richard and I did it. God, no. Please believe me on that one, whatever else you may think of me, she said. Why should I? I said. I turned to Richard. Does your wife know? No, she's been ill for almost our whole married life. That's why I came onto your wife, to fulfill a need I had, he said. And please, Mr. Pierce, no matter what you decide to do, don't tell Maxine. It would kill her. Do what you want with me, but don't tell her. David, I have a proposal I hope you'll consider, Hannah said. I stared at her, my eyes signaling her to continue. This was all crazy, but no one could have claimed it wasn't interesting, and I was recording it. First and foremost, I want us to remain married, she paused. Second, and I know at first blush this is going to sound strange, I want you to consider Richard here your brother husband. Huh? What? I don't understand, I said, and I didn't. Well, it's simple, really. Richard and Maxine will remain married, and he will remain her dutiful husband as long as she lives. You and I will be as before, but Richard will be kind of a second husband to me. I mean, since you know everything already, he'll be like a brother to you, a brother husband. Unofficial, of course. But for us, the real deal, she said. I stared. I had no words. I couldn't breathe all that well. I took a shallow breath, and I must have flushed or taken on an indeterminate expression. Sounds good, Hurt, she said. You're crazy, both of you. We're done here. Please go straight to hell, I said. David, what are you talking about? I thought I made myself clear. I mean. Shut up. I will not be your cuck and certainly not his, I said, nodding in the direction of Richard. I will not accept getting the occasional mercy sex just to placate me. Frankly, I deserve better than that. I deserve a wife, a real wife. I stormed out, leaving the two of them to talk it over. I pulled into the garage and the kids met me at the kitchen door. Well, said Sophia. I'm divorcing her, I said. She met me there with her lover. She told me I had to accept him, but that she'd let me have occasional mercy sex every now and then. I stretched the truth a little, but it was how I felt. Ask her if you don't believe me. Benjamin was already out of the room and pulling his cell phone to call her. I burst out crying, I couldn't help it. Sophia came to me. Dad, she said, putting her arms around me. Don't worry, it'll work out all right. Benjamin and I are here for you. Hell of a thing, a man having to lean on his baby to get comfort in a bad time like this, I thought. It should have been my wife, not my kid. I was dying inside. Benjamin returned, looking at me sympathetically. She is with someone. He actually answered her phone. I don't know what to say, Dad. I'm sure Sophia told you we are here to support you. We do want to help Mum too, but things don't look too good at the moment, I have to admit. Thanks, Benjamin. That helps, I said, wiping my eyes. We talked for some time about what I was going to do. I told them to expect a divorce and that it would be coming soon. There was no way I was going to be her willing cuck. The next day, I approached Nate, our lawyer, and told him to expedite the divorce proceedings. "Are you really going to crucify her financially, David?" said Nate. "Absolutely. She's the one who insisted on the prenup, and she's the one who screwed me over by screwing her boss and then daring me to accept it or leave. Well, I'm leaving. I want it done fast, public, and loud." Okay. You're within your rights. I'll have her essentially destitute by the end of the week. You know what to do at your end, he said. Yes, I do, and I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it, just like she did telling me the things she told me. I called into work and took the rest of the week off. I needed to get everything handled by week's end. I wanted out of my sham of a marriage, and I wanted it sooner rather than later. She was served at her workplace 2 days later. She called me. "So, it's over. 24 years down the tubes," she said. "You should know." "You ended it," I said. "How many other husbands do you think would have taken your offer of occasional mercy sex seriously?" "I don't think too many." "You're good looking, but not that good looking." "David, what's this about mercy sex?" "I love you. We would have made love just like always, maybe even more than before. God knows I feel I had a lot to make up for, hurting you like I did," she said. "Exactly. You'd have done more because you felt you had to, so that I wouldn't feel left out, not because you wanted to," I said. "That's the definition of mercy screwing, Hannah. You do know that, right?" No, it's not. I wouldn't be doing it to make you feel better." "Well, in a way, I would, but mainly, I'd be doing it to make sure you knew I loved you and only you. Look, can't we try to put this behind us? I'll do anything to make this right. I'm already looking for a job elsewhere. I have to stay here until I get one, but I will be out of there as soon as I can. Doesn't that say something about where I'm at?" "Too little, too late, Hannah. You blew it by screwing him. When you want to get your stuff at the office, I don't trust you anymore. You're a liar and a cheat. I have to go. Goodbye," I said and hung up. The divorce was finalized 6 months later. My life post-divorce was quiet, boring, and lonely. The kids understood, or so I thought. But they clearly believed I had been too hard on their mother because I had cut her off without a dime. I knew they had taken to contributing to her financial well-being, at first using some of the college money I had sent them, but soon she was able to make it on her own. She had gotten a job at a different firm. The thing that really pissed me off, though, was the fact that she had kept up her relationship with Richard. It was almost Christmas, nearly a year and a half after the divorce, when things really came to a head. I had avoided seeing or even hearing anything about my ex for the entire time since the divorce. The kids were under strict orders to tell her nothing about me, nor did I want to hear anything whatsoever about her. They went along with it well, until that Christmas. "Dad," said Sophia softly, "I am graduating next month, just 33 more days, and then Matt and I are getting married." My eyes popped open, and the smile on my face seemed to please my daughter. I knew about the graduation date, of course, and had been planning on attending. I was a little nervous about probably seeing my ex there, but it was one of those can't-help-it things that divorced people just had to deal with, I supposed. "Honey, that's great. When's the event?" She asked. "The week after I graduate, Daddy," she said. "Ah, Mom's going to be there too, I mean, at the wedding. Is that okay? I know you don't want to see her, but this is kind of a special day." "Yes, and I expect she'll be at the graduation ceremony too," I said. I had to laugh. "Of course, I won't have a problem with that. Tell her that. Tell her I won't even mind if she shows up with him. Daddy, he's not that bad. I mean, I wish you wouldn't keep calling him that." "It's water under the bridge, okay," she said. Okay. I can put up with him for one day. I promise to behave," I said. She relaxed a little but then started to fidget. "Honey," I said. "Dad, I have a big favor to ask of you," said Sophia. I narrowed my eyes. This didn't sound good. "Okay." "Dad, Mom feels left out of my life. Benjamin and I spend a lot of time with you and hardly any, at least in comparison, with her, said Sophia. Really? Yes. And, well, she asked if maybe it would be all right with you if Mr. Colburn walked me down the aisle, she said cautiously. The shock was so sudden and so thunderously hurtful that I could barely talk. I choked out my words. She is asking if the man who took her away from me should do my job. Well, not really, Dad. He will never take your place in my heart, never. It's just that Mum feels so left out, so much less since you divorced her. I said I would ask you, you know you got everything in the divorce, she didn't get anything. She just wants some little thing to kind of make her feel a little more like, well, our mom, said Sophia. I have to go. I have to do some things, I said, my voice faltering. The divorce was bad, but this was the worst thing that had ever happened to me. Daddy, please. I stood and walked out, then walked faster and finally ran. She was saying something, yelling something, but I was running, literally running, from her. I could hear her voice in the distance, but I kept going. My stomach was in knots. In that moment, I knew my ex-wife had won. I could not share my daughter in any way, shape, or form with that man, no more than I could share my wife. And in that same moment, I knew what I had to do. Before the day was out, I would be setting the wheels in motion to remove myself from my family forever. Hell of a thing. I drove directly to Eric Jennings's office. He greeted me, and we sat down. After signing all the necessary papers, I called Greg Lawson, my boss at the credit union. Greg was upset that I was quitting, but after I told him the situation, he understood. I told him I was coming by to turn in my keys and provide some computer access codes he would need. Nate had my power of attorney to sell the house. All the proceeds were to go to the kids. I also left a letter with him for them, explaining my wishes but putting no limitations on their use of the money. I simply told them to finish college, no matter what, and expressed hope that they'd have good lives. The kids were summoned to my ex-wife's apartment, where Nate sat across from them at the dinette. In front of him was a manila envelope. Kids, I'm here representing your dad, said Nate. He asked me to give you these. He pulled out a letter and some other paperwork that looked like receipts. You can look at them at your leisure, but I need to tell you a few things first. What's this all about, Mr. Harmon, said Benjamin, looking about as worried as he actually was. Your father has left town for good, Nate said. He asked me to tell you he loved you both and wouldn't stand in your way or cause you any more heartache than he feels he has already caused. Nate looked at Sophia. Sophia, I've known you and your family all your life. Your dad just could not bring himself to upset your wedding. He also couldn't bring himself to share you with the man who cucked him and took away his wife, so he opted to take himself out of the picture. He wishes you well and prays your marriage will be wonderful and lifelong, unlike his own. What the hell? Screamed Sophia. He's gone without a word, gone. Mr. Harmon, you have to help us find him. This is all wrong. We just thought that. I mean, Mom thought. Benjamin. Nate continued as Sophia broke down. I have no knowledge as to your father's destination. The house, there must be a clue in the house, said Benjamin. The house is cleaned out, Nate replied. Everything is gone except the furniture. He left instructions with me to give all of that to your mother. I'm expediting the sale myself, and the proceeds are to be divided between you. It's all in the letter he gave you. Everything is yours, no restrictions. The sobbing began in earnest, even from Benjamin. The lawyer let himself out quietly, leaving the children in their grief. Sophie sat across from Sophia and Benjamin, her look drawn and distant. I am so sorry, Sophia. I didn't think your dad would do something like this. I was just hoping the bitterness he felt for me and Richard might melt a little if we could be, maybe, a little more like a family again. I guess I messed up. Well, hell, it wouldn't be the first time, would it? Mom, Dad has never gotten over the breakup, Sophia said, her voice breaking. He thought he had to go through with the divorce and is still bitter. It wasn't just you finding someone new. He had some crazy notion that you were trying to make him happy to be cucked by you and that you actually wanted him to share you with Richard. I know it sounds crazy, but he believed it. His thinking was all crazy and mixed up. I should have seen this coming. I'm studying psychology, for crying out loud. Sophie began to cry. The children tried to comfort her. Mom, about the wedding, said Benjamin, you're right. Richard will not walk Sophia down the aisle. If Dad ever returns, or if we can find him, we won't have to explain how he was replaced in his duty. I'll walk Sophia down the aisle. Okay, sure, I will be honored if it's okay with you, sis. Benjamin said to Sophia. She nodded in agreement, wiping her tears. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life, she whispered. Honey, I know your dad, said Sophie. He wouldn't want you to change anything. He'd want you to be happy. The year since the wedding had been one of rebuilding for me, rebuilding my life. I had made a few new friends in Mexico, where I decided to settle. I had all the money I needed to start fresh and was finally finding some peace. I had originally considered moving to California, but in the end, I gambled and went south instead. The village I chose, Pine Haven, was on the Baja Peninsula, below Clearwater. It was mostly a collection of vacation homes for upper-middle-class Californians. My place was a modest 3-bedroom unit with all the necessities. I planned to be a year-round resident. The extra rooms allowed me to work part-time, tutoring high school students online. It kept me busy and gave me a purpose. I wasn't even 50 years old yet, after all. I wasn't ready to retire completely. One day, I was sitting on my newly built veranda with Carlos, a local carpenter and friend who had helped me renovate the place. You did a great job, Carlos. I love this porch, I said, taking a sip of my beer. My pleasure, senor, he replied. He knew my name and I had asked him 50 times to use it, but I was always going to be senor to him. I raised my bottle to him and we tapped bottles. Any news from your family, senor? Carlos asked. No, Carlos, I replied, throwing his formality back at him with a smile. And I probably never will again. That is not so good, senor, he said. A man needs his family. They need their father. It is not so good. You're right about that, my friend, you're right about that, I said, feeling the truth of his words. It was a warm afternoon when a car pulled up on the road below my veranda. I saw someone get out and look toward us, shading their eyes with a hand. The person got back into the car and drove toward the house. To my surprise, the vehicle stopped in front of us and a man got out. He was wearing a broad-brimmed hat, the kind tourists pick up at roadside stands, and it nearly obscured his face. He looked up and my surprise turned to recognition. Matt. Christopher Walker. What are you doing here? I said, standing up. I've got news, David, and you have to listen, he said. Oh, and get me one of those beers. It was a long drive. I reached into the cooler and grabbed him a bottle, popped it open, and handed it to him. Come on up. Have a seat. I was curious, but my initial satisfaction at seeing an old friend was overwhelming. We settled in with our drinks. Your daughter, David, Matt began. Sophia has given birth to twins, a boy and a girl. I lost all composure. My face went blank with shock, and my bottle froze midway to my lips. Twins? I said, my voice trembling. That's wonderful. But there was no joy in my tone. How's Sophia? She's doing well, busy, as you can imagine. She suspected I knew how to find you and came to me. She wanted me to give you this. He handed me a letter. David, I was at a conference in San Diego and decided it was time to come down and see how you were doing. I took the letter from him, my hands shaking slightly. And how's Hannah? I asked quietly, almost regretting the question. She's doing okay too, Matt said cautiously. She and Richard, they are still together. Yes, he's still married, but apparently, that hasn't changed much. My grip on the bottle tightened. Still cheating on his wife. I muttered. And getting away with it. What a mess. David, Sophia wants you to come back, Matt said. She hasn't had any peace since you left. She blames herself. I think you need to consider visiting. Reconnect. And don't tell me it's none of my business. I care about you. It is my business. I looked at him sharply, but he was right. I didn't know what to do. I didn't want to go back, but I had to meet my grandkids. All right, Matt. You stay here tonight and I'll make up my mind by morning, I said. He nodded. Sounds good. I didn't want to drive back to LA at night anyway. Thanks. We toasted the last rays of the sun and called it a day. I read Sophia's letter later that night, and with each word, my decision became clearer. I had to see my namesakes. The letter from Sophia read: Dear Daddy, I am so sorry for upsetting you like I did. I guess I just didn't realize how important walking me down the aisle was to you. I was stupid, okay. Mom is sorry too for suggesting it. Daddy, I need you to come back. I am begging you on my knees, really. Please come back, Dad. I need a kiss goodnight. Oh my, I don't know what I mean, just come back to us. For the record, Evan walked me down the aisle. Your grandbabies are beautiful. I know you'll love them, and they will need their grandpa too. Their names, so you'll know, are David and Eliza. Love. Your Sophia. That last part did it for me. They had named one of the twins after me. I had to see my namesakes. There was no way I could stay away any longer. The next day, Matt and I flew back together with first-class tickets. He talked about what had been happening back home, filling me in on details, but I only half listened. My mind was focused on seeing my daughter and meeting my grandchildren. The moment we landed, I felt a mixture of excitement and dread. I hadn't been back in nearly 2 years. Sophia picked us up from the airport, and I hugged her as if I hadn't seen her in a lifetime. She was already tearing up before she even spoke. Daddy, I'm so glad you're here, she said, her voice trembling. I missed you so much. I missed you too, Sophia, I said, my throat tightening. Where are the little ones? They are at the house with Matt, she replied. I wanted us to have some time first before you met them. She looked at me with a mixture of anxiety and hope. Is that okay? Of course, honey. Whatever you need, I said, trying to hold back my own emotions. We drove to her house, and as we pulled up, I saw Benjamin standing on the porch with a baby carrier in each hand. He waved, and I felt a pang of guilt for abandoning them. Hey, Dad, he said, as we stepped out of the car. He embraced me, and I felt a lump in my throat. Benjamin, I managed to say. It's good to see you, son. And you too, Dad, he replied, patting me on the back. We went inside, and there they were, 2 tiny little babies in a double bassinet, swaddled in matching blue and pink blankets. My eyes misted as I approached them. Dad, meet David and Eliza, Sophia said softly. Your grandkids. I couldn't hold back any longer. I bent over and kissed each of them on the forehead. They were so small, so precious. They are beautiful, I whispered. Just perfect. Sophia handed Eliza to me, and as I held my granddaughter, a wave of love washed over me. I looked over at little David, and Benjamin gently picked him up and placed him in my other arm. I stood there, holding both of them, overwhelmed by a feeling I hadn't experienced in a long time, joy. We sat together for hours, talking and catching up. I learned about everything I had missed, and they told me about all the changes in their lives. As the day turned into evening, I felt a sense of peace that I hadn't felt in years. I had come home. The next day, we went out for a celebratory lunch. Benjamin had come down from school for the occasion, and Sophia had taken a few days off work to be with the family. As we sat down, Sophia cleared her throat. Dad, there's something we need to talk about, she said, a bit nervously. I looked at her curiously. What is it? It's Mom. She really wants to see you, Sophia said. She's been trying to reach out, and well, I know things are still complicated, but I thought maybe, just maybe, you could talk to her. My face darkened slightly. Sophia, we've been through this. I'm not sure what good it would do. Please, Dad, just hear her out, Sophia pleaded. I think she really regrets what happened, and she just wants a chance to make amends. Benjamin nodded in agreement. Dad, you don't have to forgive her if you don't want to. But maybe talking to her could bring you some closure. I sighed, feeling conflicted. It had been a long time since I had spoken to Hannah, and I had no idea what she could possibly say that would change anything. But then again, maybe it was time to finally close that chapter of my life. Okay, I said reluctantly. I'll talk to her. But don't expect too much. Thank you, Dad, Sophia said, visibly relieved. We arranged to meet at a coffee shop in town. I arrived a little early, my nerves building as I waited. I hadn't seen Hannah since the divorce, and I didn't know what to expect. A few minutes later, she walked in. She looked almost the same, though there was a touch of weariness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. She spotted me, and we exchanged an awkward smile. Hi, David, she said, sitting down across from me. Hannah, I said, nodding. There was an uncomfortable silence. Finally, she spoke. I know I'm probably the last person you want to see, but I needed to talk to you. I owe you an apology, many, in fact, she began. I've had a lot of time to think about what I did, and I know that I hurt you in ways I can never undo. I stared at her, unsure how to respond. Why now, Hannah? Why after all this time? Because I realized what I lost, David, she said, her voice breaking slightly. I know I was wrong, so wrong, to expect you to share me with Richard. It was selfish and thoughtless. I should have fought to fix things between us instead of dragging you into that madness. I wanted to say I'm sorry for everything, for betraying you, for hurting the kids, for everything. I took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. Well, I'm glad you finally see that, I said quietly. But an apology doesn't change what happened. I lost a lot because of you. I know, and I'm not asking for forgiveness, she replied. I just want you to know that I understand now. I'm not with Richard anymore, and I've spent the past year trying to rebuild my life, just like you. Her admission caught me off guard. You're not with him? No, she said, shaking her head. His wife found out. It was a mess, and honestly, I think it was a mistake from the beginning. I'm trying to move forward now. I felt a strange sense of relief hearing that. I didn't come here to dredge up the past, Hannah, I said. I came because Sophia asked me to. She wanted us to find some way to move on. Can we? She asked softly. Can we move on, David? I don't know, I admitted. But I'm willing to try for the sake of our family. That's all I can promise. She nodded, tears glistening in her eyes. Thank you. That's more than I deserve. We finished our conversation amicably, both agreeing to start fresh, not as a couple, but as co-parents and grandparents who could be civil for the sake of their family. It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a beginning. In the months that followed, I stayed in town longer than I had originally planned. I found myself drawn back into the family's orbit, attending gatherings and getting to know my grandkids better. I still spent part of the year down in Pine Haven, where I found solace in my quiet life, but now I also had a reason to come back more often. I had a family again. One evening, during a family dinner, Sophia looked at me and smiled. Dad, I'm so glad you came back. I smiled back at her, realizing how true that was. Me too, honey, I said. Me too. Thanks for watching. Lucas's story shows love and resilience after betrayal. Would you rebuild or walk away? Share your thoughts in the comments and don't forget to like and subscribe for more powerful stories. See you next time.